Started. We've given everybody another minute. So good morning, everyone. Welcome to our webinar on getting better results from AI. I'm Keith Bird, for those that don't know me, and I look after the account management team at Digital Origin and our go-to-market offerings and services and products. Obviously, AI and automation is extremely popular at the moment, and we're definitely on an educational journey with everyone. So we're very excited this morning to present to you all. Once the webinar starts, please feel free to put any questions into the Q&A box. We really want you to get as much out of the webinar as possible, so please feel free to do that. There's no silly questions. Everybody's at different stages, so please fire away. We will be sending a recording out after the webinar, so that will be free and available to rewatch. So I'm going to hand over to Matt. I'm joined this morning by Matt from Artificial One, who's our AI and automation partner. I'm going to hand over without further ado, because we've got lots to cover. So over to you, Matt.
Thanks, Keith. Good morning, everyone. As Keith mentioned, we have a jam-packed session today. We're going to be talking about some really practical things about how you can get Copilot working in a way that actually makes it feel like yours and a little bit less generic, because let's be honest, a lot of the time the output from Copilot and other AI tools tends to feel a bit like you've seen it before, like it's a bit stale, like it's a little bit just meh. Do me a favor, we've got a little reaction button in Teams. Can everyone just hit that and then put a little thumbs up or a little, whatever interaction you like, just if you felt that you've used an AI tool before and the output has been a bit iffy, a bit rubbish, needs a little bit of extra help to get there and over the line. Yeah, okay, great, fantastic. Well, it's good to see that, yes, yeah, lots of people feel that way and also know where the reaction button is, which is handy for later on. So typically speaking, when we go and help customers, we tend to find that when we first land in the room, that most people are treating Copilot or any other AI tool a bit like a search box. And 9 out of 10 people that have a license haven't actually built any kind of habits around using Copilot in a consistent way. And it's that consistent usage and those habits that make it start to feel a lot more personal to you and a lot more useful and increase and enhance the quality of the responses. We also find that around 20% is the kind of utilization of Copilot's features that people are actually making use of. Most people haven't actually built a spreadsheet using Copilot, got it to edit slides for them in PowerPoint, or built a personalization agent, and certainly very, very few people have set up their personal custom instructions. So do me a favor, again, use that reaction button if you have set up your personal instructions in Copilot, because usually only about 10% of people, if that, have. One person? Excellent. Anybody else? So that 10% figure was possibly a little bit ambitious for this particular audience, and that is great because we're going to be really focusing in on that, and we're going to be talking about prompt frameworks and other things that are repeatable and consistent that will give you so much mileage over time. So the 3 things that you're going to leave with today, and I've already kind of alluded to it, is Copilot sounding like you and working for you rather than just copy and pasting content between windows all the time. We've got a prompt framework that we use called the AFH prompt framework, the Ask for Help prompt framework. And this is straight out of our flagship training deck. Over to you guys, from me to you. And then we're going to take a look at a very small personalized AI agent that I use in my day-to-day, and I'll talk you through what it does, how it works, and how it saves me probably somewhere in the realm of maybe 3 hours a week. So why does Copilot feel a bit generic? And the issue is a lot of the time that you type a prompt and it will come back with something completely forgettable, because a lot of the prompts we see are a little bit like the ones that are on the right-hand side here. Write a follow-up email to this client. And Copilot doesn't know anything about you. It doesn't know anything about the context, your expectations, the goals, the tone, the structure. Yes, we all know that it has this wonderful grounding in the Microsoft 365 Graph API and that it can pull data from lots of different places, but that doesn't tell it very much about you, who you are, how you like to talk, whether you say cheers, thanks, regards on a sign off of an email. It can guess, but it's always going to take the average answer that it thinks is going to make you happy. So we end up with this really vanilla output like, thanks for your email. I'd be happy to assist with your inquiry. Let me know if there's anything further I can help you with. It's a load of word soup. It doesn't really actually say much while putting some words on a page. So the way that we combat that is we start to tell Copilot more and give it more information by prompting better, but we also set up our personal instructions, because setting these personal instructions up gives Copilot a consistent baseline to work from every single time. So the reason these are important is when you go and create a new chat with Copilot, it will go and load these instructions into what we call its context window. So it already has a baseline understanding of what your expectations are. And we'll take a look at exactly where you can find those instructions in just a second. And the reason for this is that, as we said, it will stop sounding like a robot, stop sounding really sterile and like a computer, and start sounding a lot more like you wrote it in your voice. Now, I'm not saying that you should just always use AI output verbatim anyway, even with your custom instructions. We should always be refining the output and making sure that we tailor it and that we're happy with it, because we have to take responsibility for our AI outputs. But it's going to get you a lot further with that first draft than you otherwise would have got without any kind of personalization. So just take a look at the two little boxes for me, and this is just a rough example of what it will look like with that same vague prompt with no instructions, which is what we saw before, and then after with instructions. And you can see the two are completely different, because in the scenario on the right-hand side, I would configure Copilot to send me a brief around the message that it's going to reply with, pull some additional context, put some more information in, and give it a style, and then provide me with a précis of what it's going to do and why it's doing it. That's the difference. And then obviously the output that followed underneath that would be really, really different again to what was written. Hopefully that makes sense. And so just gradually going through and iteratively adding to these instructions over time, you will find your output gets better and better and better. Because every single time you learn something and think, oh, that was really useful, I'm going to add that to my instructions, Copilot then has access to that forever, for life, for every single prompt thereafter, which is extremely powerful. So this isn't just a one and done process. It's quite iterative in nature, and it could take a little while to get it to a point where it's really, really dialed in. So you're probably thinking, okay, Matt, this all sounds like quite a lot of effort. I need to think about who I am, what I do, why I do it, how I'm going to do it. That sounds quite hard and like I'm going to have to sit down for a couple of hours. Well, before AI, yeah, you would have had to have done that, and it would have been quite hard and it would have been quite high effort. However, I have a framework for you. So our Ask for Help framework is effectively where you use Copilot or any other large language model tool to effectively give you the questions that you need to answer in order for it to build its own context. So in the example that we're going through here, what we're going to do is we're going to use this framework to give Copilot a goal of filling in our personal instructions, or giving us the question, interviewing us to fill out our personal instructions, I should say, asking us a whole bunch of questions, which we're then going to answer. It's then going to look at those, contextualize them, work out whether or not it needs to ask some more questions, and then eventually give us that baseline, that first set of instructions for it to start working on forevermore. When I first did this, I used this framework actually, I'm not going to say when I first did it, but when I did this the other week, I was putting together a legal pack, which can be quite an onerous subject. It can be quite difficult. And I used this framework to get Copilot to ask me 77 questions that would help us build the first draft of all of our legal documents. And it worked really, really well. I sat there for about half an hour filling in all the answers to all the questions. But what that gave me was a file full of context for Copilot to reference for every single legal document that we would ever build. So really simple things like what's our office address, what's our VAT number, who is the accounts contact, who's the founder, all of that stuff was already pre-populated. Makes it so much easier. So hopefully this has been enough time for the slide to be up on the screen, and we will send the deck around later on, so don't worry about taking a picture of it with your phone or anything like that. But hopefully this has given everyone a bit of a flavour of what it is about. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to actually break out of PowerPoint, and we're going to use this framework and see it in action, and I will show you what that actually looks like. So if I just stop sharing my PowerPoint screen, and then I am going to share Copilot chat. Okay, so when we open up Copilot chat, which we should have here, can everyone see that okay? Hopefully, yes. Keith, all good your side? Wonderful. Oh, yeah, lovely. Got those thumbs up reactions. Thank you very much, team. Everybody's paying attention. Lovely, good work. So this is Copilot chat. And if we head over to these three little dots over to settings and more just up here, and then if we click on chat settings just here, this has all moved around recently because Microsoft have changed the Copilot interface a little bit. And then if we go down to this personalization tab just here, you can see we've got custom instructions. You can actually turn these off and on a little toggle, which is quite cool. I quite like that because you might want a chat where you don't have any of this rich context once you've built up so much of it. There is a scenario that says you might want that. Anyway, that's a chat for another day. If we click this edit instructions button, you can see here we've got all of my custom instructions that have built up over time, and there are quite a lot of them. So if we just blow that up a little bit, and you can see here we've got all sorts of stuff in here that I have built up, which help me in my day-to-day. Let's just zoom. In fact, actually, we'll keep that at a reasonable size. So if we just get out of the personalization, and then you've also got these saved. Just while we're here, actually, just going to take a little pause on this. Saved memories are really, really useful in Copilot, right? Because it's going to take out little snippets, little best bits, little things that it's going to remember about you over time to provide a better experience. So a little bit like how you iteratively improve your custom instructions gradually over time, memory does that for you as well, but subtly in the background, so you don't have to be thinking about it. So that's quite helpful. Chat history is also coming in finally to Copilot as well if you're on Frontier. I haven't actually played around with that too much, but it's looking promising. So yeah, lots of really cool new features. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to this tab here where I've already prepared a prompt for Copilot, and I'm just going to take you through it. So what I've put is Copilot. I'm a founder of an AI consulting company, and I want you to set up my personalization instructions so that you can provide me with the most valuable, relevant output in a format that works for me every time. You're going to interview me to help me figure out what we need to populate your instructions with. Ask me 20 interview questions about my business, life, role, working style, and anything else that may be relevant to help you achieve the goal. Do not stop asking questions until you have enough knowledge in your context to accurately achieve the goal of providing me with the best, most relevant set of custom instructions for my settings. If we get to 50 questions, tell me how far in you think we are, how much context you have, and I will decide whether you should ask any more. So most people would say, wow, that looks like quite a long prompt. This is pretty much par for the course for most tasks, particularly things that are a bit more in depth like this. This is the kind of prompt that you should really be writing and looking to get as a first go one-shot prompt. So if we just hit send over there, and I haven't actually got a backup for this. Everything else, every other demo that we've got today, I have a backup for, but this is just actually genuinely happening live, and I've no idea what's going to happen next. So let's just hope it works. You can see here up in the top left, I've actually selected the Opus model. So I've got Claude's models turned on in my tenant. Really, really cool that you can switch between OpenAI and Anthropic, depending on what task you're working on. Opus is probably a little bit heavyweight for this task, to be honest. However, I quite like it, and I think the way that it writes is is quite good. So Copilot is going to go ahead and work on this and start building out that list of 20 questions. If I'm honest, this is taking a little bit longer than I thought it would to think about that. So what I'm going to do is, just to save people from getting terribly bored, is I'm going to ask the same thing. I'm going to put it onto quick response, turn off work IQ. Actually, I'll leave work IQ turned on thinking about it, pop it into quick response, and then we should get a list of questions, and you should see an example of the kind of things it's going to ask to provide an answer for. Sorry, I was a bit thrown off there because the first thing Copilot said was excellent prompt. I've never actually seen it do that before. So we can see here Copilot's dived into 20 questions: business and commercial, strategy and decision making, my personal working style. What I would do next is I would go through and I would answer these in line one by one. So I would take these 20 questions, I would then copy them, paste them into here or into Notepad or something like that, and I would start saying, providing answers in line to those questions and then sending the prompt back. And then what Copilot's going to do, I'm obviously not going to do that on this call because it would take far too long, but what Copilot's then going to do is work to either provide you 20 more questions or just say, oh, I've got enough context. Here's your first set of instructions. Let me know what you think. So I'm just going to see if Opus didn't actually process that, which is interesting. I'm not going to diagnose that because we've got far too much content to get through. So that is how you can configure Copilot and get that baseline of instructions really well dialed in right out the gate without having to really make too much effort, to be honest. I reckon that would take most people about 20 minutes to half an hour, but it's a really worthwhile investment because those instructions then carry on persisting forever in every single chat after that. So let's just have a quick go back into the PowerPoint and explore our next set of demos, which is putting Copilot to work. A lot of the time, people treat Copilot or any other AI tool as a content generation machine. So they will ask a question, it will create some output, they will copy that output and paste it somewhere. And those bits in the middle, that copying and pasting, and it's all a bit clunky, isn't it? It doesn't feel like that's what AI was really made to do. It's meant to make our lives infinitely easier, and yet for some reason we're still sat in the middle doing Control-C, Control-V all the time. But you don't have to do it that way. We can get Copilot to actually start building for us in the applications that we use every single day. So I build a lot of PowerPoint decks, and this has been an absolute game changer for me. So I'm just going to break out of the presenting mode here. And if we just look at the bottom right-hand side, you can see we've got the Copilot ribbon. So if we just click that, and then we get this little sidebar here. Up in the top right-hand side, we've got the model selector. Again, I'm going to select Opus because I like Opus and it gives me good responses. And I've just got this little prompt here that I'm going to go and find. So very, very simple, very, very clean little prompt. Add a new slide in the current deck format between slide 11 and 12. Include a show-stopping fact about AI literacy in the most impactful way you can display to the audience. So I've actually allowed editing here. If you said chat only, then you would only get a response in chat. So you can just have Copilot sat there providing feedback on your deck. But let's send that off. And what Copilot is going to start doing is it's going to start looking at the deck, understanding the format, understanding what it's about, putting some context in. This is a deliberately vague prompt because I wanted it to kind of come up with something that, you know, doesn't look completely pre-canned or pre-rehearsed. Obviously, I know it's going to come up with something, but I genuinely don't know what it's going to come up with. And you can all tell me whether you thought it was valuable and useful or not. While Copilot is doing that in PowerPoint, because it does take a while with all the formatting and stuff that it's got to do behind, we've got these little gradients and things in the deck. I'm just going to move over to Excel and show you Excel, like Copilot working in Excel, and actually start to build a spreadsheet for me. And we'll come back to that in just a second. So I almost hit the end event button instead of the share button there. That was in going hastily. I think that would not have ended very well. So again, you'll see here, once I put Excel on the screen. We've got the little Copilot ribbon just down here. So if we click that, we get the Copilot sidebar come up for us again. Really similar feel to PowerPoint. You've got the model selector up here. You've got the new chat button there, and you've got the editing mode just here. So I'm going to go and start building a spreadsheet, but I'm going to get Copilot to do it for me. So let's have a look at this first prompt then. So the first prompt is create a sheet of mock data with 10 fruits for sale at a pretend supermarket. So Copilot is going to come up with 10 different fruits, and it is going to populate them into a table. Let's just wait for it to work. It took about a minute earlier on when I tested this. I've just had a quick look at the PowerPoint Copilot agent, and it is going off and doing some research at the moment. Worth noting, whilst we're just waiting for this, that if you do use this feature to build out your worksheets, work in your Word documents, work in PowerPoint, any chats that you have with Copilot here are not persistent. They do not get saved. So if you have been chatting with a spreadsheet that's really long and comprehensive, you will find that when you close the sheet and come back to it another day, that chat is gone. So just be very, very careful. And you can't go back to your Copilot chat history either and find it. It's gone forever. So just bear in mind, anything in here does not stay there forever. So we can see that Copilot has come up with our table and it has got it there. So I'm just going to now add 3 more rows to that. And again, you can see here, I probably should have shown you, I'm sure you can't hear any typing, but my hands are not on the keyboard. I'm not doing anything. So I'm just letting it work away, doing its own thing, talking to you while it's actually going and building this spreadsheet for me. Now, obviously, we're not going to ask Copilot to build us sheets of fruit, but that VLOOKUP that you have to do once a year that you can never remember the formula for, that takes you all afternoon on a Friday because you've been putting it off and putting it off. I used to have to do that with work regularly. I could never remember how to do it, and it was such a pain. This gets rid of that problem because all you have to do is describe exactly what you want to Copilot, and it will go and do it for you. So I've just asked it to go and put a discount tab in there for me, or a discount column, I should say. And you can see here how we're just building and building and building this sheet. But we can have this running as a task in the background while we're on a Teams call or while we're working on something else, rather than having to, sit there and manually type these things out and manually put things in, manually put formulas in. We can just let Copilot take the work off of our plate and do it for us, which is huge, because you wouldn't feed it little piecemeal prompts like this. You would say, these are the columns I want, this is the data that's got to go in them, this is the objective I'm trying to achieve, and you'd let it go and build it over the course of, say, an hour, come back to it, and it's done. So the final thing that I'm going to do here, which is a little bit more challenging, is we built our spreadsheet, we built our discount, we built our sales prices, and I've just said in our grand finale prompt, in a large merged cell, a couple of rows beneath the table we've built, create a short promotional message I can send to my customers with our top 3 discounts on the sheet, available for 1 week only, 100 words max. So there's a reason that I've picked some of these scenarios for you to demonstrate today, and that's because Copilot has to reason through doing this stuff. So it has to reason through how many rows should I put it below? How big should the merged cell be? What products should I pick? Which ones do have the biggest discount? And it's actually going to go through, have a look at that, work it out, and then put it in there. So for me, this is just absolutely invaluable. My use case was the other day, I was putting a deck of 100 slides together for our flagship training program. We were updating it. All the numbering had gone out of whack, and all of these little page numbers and little bubbles that we have at the bottom right-hand side, some of them were in the right place, some of them were up and to the left, some of them were up, some of them were to the right, some of them were off the page. And I just got Copilot in PowerPoint to make the position of the bubble and the page number absolute, 30 pixels from the bottom, 30 pixels from the right, across all 100 slides. And it just worked through in about 45 minutes and did it. it would have taken me probably almost that long to do it myself, just sitting there painstakingly going, is it the same on that slide? Is it the same on that one? Da da da, yada yada. So hopefully you're starting to see the power of actually getting AI to do the work for you rather than just copying and pasting content between windows. And if you're thinking, oh, yeah, but Matt, I don't know that I can trust it and the output feels generic. Well, we've just started the road to fixing that by putting the custom instructions in. And we've given you a prompt framework that you can now use, and you can apply that to absolutely anything. It doesn't have to be custom instructions. You can apply that, hey, this is the thing I'm trying to do. Ask me 20 questions to help me achieve it. It doesn't have to be 20, it could be 5. And then once I've provided you with the answers, go and execute the thing, go and try to achieve the goal that we're looking for. Keith, I think I just saw your mouth moving, but you're on mute. I don't know if you were trying to jump in there.
No, you're good, Matt.
Okay, no worries. Sorry about that, everybody. Okay, so let's head back over to our PowerPoint deck and see how Copilot got on whilst we were doing that. So if you remember, I asked for a slide between 11 and 12. So this will now be 11 and 13. So that's where we were, Copilot in Excel building live. And we've now got a new slide 12, which is in the style that I asked for before. It's used the same green, it's used the same big bold headings with little subtitles underneath. Similar kind of thing at the bottom, same gradient blue background at the bottom right. I'm not going to go through and check what has actually been produced here because that would take valuable time that you don't need to spend doing that. However, hopefully you can see, and it demonstrates that the quality of slides that can now be produced by AI tools has gone up exponentially. Would I use this exact slide in this presentation? I can't say for sure without spending some time on it, but it's pretty close and it looks like the rest of the deck. Certainly if I was in a hurry and someone had said to me on Thursday, Matt, oh my God, that big meeting tomorrow, we need 10 new slides for the deck. Can you get it done? Yeah, sure I can, of course. I'm just going to get Copilot to do the first draft for me while I eat my dinner, and then I'm going to iteratively refine the slides myself for half an hour rather than spend 3 hours doing it myself and miss out on spending time with my family again. So that's the kind of thing that, in my mind, this brings to the table and why it's so powerful. So we've got one last demonstration for you, which is a little personal Copilot agent that I have built called Content from Transcripts. And it is pretty simple, really, to be honest. The goal of the agent is for it to take content from my transcripts that I've had over a certain number of days, chunk through that, and then create some output that I can use to turn into LinkedIn content, which is a really, really big thing for me. It takes a lot of time and I spend a lot of effort creating it. So let me just hop the screen share over again to Copilot. And then we can see here that I've got the agent content from transcripts selected. This is something that I very quickly built a little while ago and then kind of iterated on. And you can see here this prompt, pull my transcripts in the previous 7 days and then follow your instructions. If I put this into Copilot chat without the agent bit, it wouldn't know what to do because it would be like, well, I can get the transcript content, but you've not told me what to do with it. So I'm left guessing. Whereas this is going to give us some output that is really, really well defined, really well structured, and you'll see what that looks like. I'm actually not going to wait for that to finish executing. I just wanted to show you that the process of interacting with one of these personal Copilot agents, which you get to from just over here, by the way, is very, very similar to interacting with Copilot chat. So a bit art attack, Neil Buchanan. Here's one I did earlier. If we have a look down here, you can see that I've got a call summary from the week and those transcripts. 10 insightful moments ranked from most insightful to least insightful. And then some draft LinkedIn content. So a selected particular post type, a little prompt for the image, what the post is, and then a text post, and then a video script. So this would start to be the content for the week. The agent has an instruction in there, which basically says, anytime you create content, check it against these criteria, make sure that it is actually real, make sure you've not hallucinated, iterate over it, make sure that you've checked your own work before you actually give anything to me. So really, really kind of niche use case there. And I realize not everybody will create content, but imagine what else you could do with that. So taking your transcripts and all of your Teams calls from the week, and then on a Friday, having a scheduled prompt that talks to an agent that provides you the highlights and the lowlights and a retro from the week that's personal to you. So if you want to go on a self-improvement journey, you can. If you want to use that information to pass knowledge onto the team, you can. Whatever you want to use that for, you can actually go and start getting at the insights that are lurking in your transcripts. If you want to pull out tasks for the week, you can do that too. That's something that I found a little bit hit and miss sometimes. However, I've used that very successfully to dig into a complete comprehensive list of possible tasks and then validate it against what is actually in my Microsoft 365 planner. If anyone's familiar with Planner and in that ecosystem, you'll probably understand that's quite valuable. So I am just going to move back to the PowerPoint. And pop it on the screen. There we are. So just a very quick recap of what we just watched. The agent took the transcript and it planned what it had to do. It gathered the data that I asked it to that was in its predefined instructions. It decided what the good and the bad bits were for my transcript for itself based on some goals and some context. It then decided what the top 10 insightful moments were, and it decided of those top 10 what 3 things to then push forward to me for content ideas. And it then actually executed on that and then started to write it for me. And it then went and checked its own work. Really, really crucial step whenever you're working with agents is to have them check their own work, or even better, have a sub-agent that just checks it and passes the feedback back. And you can then use these things called loops. Some people may have heard of those, to get the agents to iterate on their own work. So this is something I use personally in my week, every single week. I attribute 2 to 3 hours of my AI time savings just to that one agent. And it took me about maybe 3 to 5 hours to build in the first instance. So build time, same as it took me to do the real task. And then it just saves me that time forever. Absolute game changer. Completely just makes content so much easier. And it is the improvement as well, something we never really talk about. The improvement in the quality of the content, because it is grounded in conversations that really happened in a way that I can't possibly remember them, because I can't carry every conversation I've had with a client over the week in my head. It gives me the ability to tell real stories and provide real insights that actually happened, and people love that. So there's an improvement angle there and a quality enhancement angle there as well. So this says what just changed in the last 45 minutes. We're actually slightly ahead of time, which is good news because we can have a little bit more time for Q&A, and I can see there's a little red dot above the Q&A, so I'm hoping there are some good questions in there. But hopefully at the end of that, you can now make Copilot truly yours. You can take that framework, put your custom instructions in there, and start getting more valuable outputs literally this afternoon after lunch. You've got the Ask or Help prompt framework. You can use that and apply that to any number of tasks that you are trying to achieve. And I promise you, I use that framework multiple times every single week myself, along with a couple of the other ones that we teach on a regular basis. And you can now also see where this is going. So agents that run end-to-end tasks to achieve particular outcomes and check their own work. The day that you can actually say to Copilot, go and build that spreadsheet, pull in context from that Word document, create the sales deck or whatever it is, or the quarterly update, do this, do that, a whole chain of tasks, that is coming really quickly. And it's pretty much, if you've got Copilot co-work, kind of already here for some people, not to the extent that you can just set and forget and then not worry about it, but to the extent that you've got that first draft, it's pretty much there already. It's amazing how far the technology has come just in the last 6 months alone. But there is a bit of a problem with that, and there's a bit of a tension here. So what we have done today is we've given one person from one business the skill to go and change fundamentally the way that they work, which is great with all the things that we mentioned before. But that isn't going to create an organization wide change in a meaningful amount of time. It's going to take a while. And to get an entire team working with this stuff in a way that is repeatable and building those habits that we talked about at the very top of the webinar requires training. It requires multiple prompt frameworks because not every framework suits every scenario. It requires Copilot agents that are tailored for workflows, even when people aren't confident enough to build them themselves. And of course, governance, security, compliance, and a full adoption plan to make sure that the investment actually sticks and achieves the ROI. The reason that I'm mentioning this is there's a little slide here called Crossing the Chasm. This is from a book that was written in, I think it was the late 90s or early 2000s, about navigating your way through technology change. Right now, we are still in the early adoption phase. We have not yet crossed the chasm and gone into what they call the early majority. But given that 2022 ChatGPT came out, 2025 we saw quite a decent chunk of acceleration. We are getting quite a way towards it. If we look at the window of opportunity, as I like to call it, this is the time when you have the most possible leverage. AI tools are never going to get better than they are today and cost less. They're either going to regress so that the frontier providers can run them cheaper, or they are going to get better and cost more. So there has literally never been a better day than today to go, we need to go on this journey. And right now, the window of opportunity is still relatively early, and everyone here stands to make enormous gains as a result of that. There was actually a woman that I was working with at a client called Kim who hadn't built those habits that we talked about. And Kim was desperately working her way through a task every Friday afternoon, used to take her 3 or 4 hours every week. And she was telling me about how she never used to get home on time for the weekend and always used to miss stuff. And I said, well, what are you trying to do? Anyway, we worked through the problem. We figured out a little Copilot routine. It was actually just 2 or 3 different prompts, sequenced, didn't need an agent. It wasn't complex enough for it. And just building those 3 repeatable prompts, saving them into a Word document in her OneDrive, because it doesn't need to be complicated, saved her 3 hours every single week. Still takes her an hour to run through that routine, but it made sure that she actually got home at 4 o'clock on a Friday and she got to start her weekend in the way that she wanted to. Made an enormous difference. And that window of opportunity is absolutely right now, because she can do all of that with a tool that only costs 24 quid a month. Never going to get any better or any cheaper. So thank you ever so much for giving me 40 minutes of your very valuable time. I really, really appreciate it. If you would like to start thinking about going on that journey, then the best thing to do is to reach out to Keith, the team, book a discovery call, and we'll look at how we can get Copilot helping you. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn off the screen share, and that's going to make me look very large on the screen, which is probably unfortunate for everybody, and get Keith on to hand over some Q&A.
Matt, that was really good. Thank you. We have got some really good questions, and I'm probably going to pronounce everybody's name incorrectly, so forgive me. I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. If you would like to unmute yourself and ask Matt the question, then feel free. If not, I'll read the question out. But we've got a question from Mira. Mira, I don't know whether you are... Ashley, who's running the webinar in the background, can unmute you potentially and then fire away your question.
Hello. Yes, right. Figured out how to unmute. Thank you.
Hey, Mira.
Hi there. Thank you. That's been really, really interesting. So I had a few questions. I wanted to know what kind of key governance measures an organization should put in place to support AI use in an organization.
Great question. How big's your business, roughly?
Well, we have about 35 full-time staff.
Yeah. And do you operate predominantly in the UK, the EU, or multinationally?
Just in the UK.
Just in the UK. Okay, so the first thing that you want to start with is a comprehensive AI policy and an insurance review. So you need to take a look at how you want the team to be using AI, what your regulatory compliance obligations are within your specific industry sector, and then start wireframing a policy around those requirements. Obviously, if you're not transacting with Europe, then you don't need to worry about the EU AI Act. And if you're not going multinational, then you don't need to worry about any other overseas acts. What I would recommend doing, though, is having a look at the type of data you want to process and whether that processing can occur in the USA, because that will dictate whether or not you can use Anthropic's models. So it's all about discovery in that first instance of putting the governance in. Is that a helpful starting point?
Yeah, yeah. So a lot of GDPR involved in all of this. Thank you.
Yeah. GDPR is massive. If you have technically, let's just say that you had a spreadsheet with 100 bits of PII in it, and you put that into ChatGPT free edition, that is technically a breach that should be reportable to the ICO. No one is reporting anything like that that's going on to the ICO, but it is 100% going on, and that's going to change eventually. People are going to catch on with how to monitor things like that better. But yeah, the other thing that I should add, which is really important, is speak to your business insurers. Let them know that you're using AI and ask them whether there are any caveats to your cover that are in play, because that will also dictate what needs to go in your AI policy.
Okay. All right. Great. Thank you.
No worries. You're welcome.
Mira, did you have a couple of other questions, or
Yeah,
would
I
you?
did.
Yeah,
Are you
we've
happy for
got
me
time.
to? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. So the other one was, and you may have said it at the beginning. Unfortunately, I joined a little bit late. Is all the functionality that you showed available just with a paid for Copilot license? What of it is available through a standard like Office 365 Copilot?
Everything that we've demonstrated today is Microsoft 365 Copilot, the paid edition, whatever Microsoft are calling that this week. Copilot Pro, I like to refer to it as. So that's all available in that edition. I don't want to commit to what is and isn't available in Copilot Chat, because Microsoft changed it again just a couple of weeks ago, and they keep on fiddling with Copilot Chat, which is what you get for free with your M365
Yeah.
license. So the message that I'm saying to most clients is, look, how seriously are you taking AI adoption, and how much do you want it to change the business? And the answer for most people with most people is, we want it to fundamentally change the way we work. Well,
Yeah.
buy the license then. It's £25 per user per month. It's
No,
not.
it's great because when you're talking about allowing edits in Excel and PowerPoint, well, you can do that with the just regular Copilot chat now. And my other question was that I get a bit worried about allowing it to do the edits, because sometimes I don't want all of the edits that it's done, or sometimes it gets some bits right and some bits wrong.
Mm.
And I kind of want that safety net of being able to go back to the original version, or can I instruct it to highlight all the changes that it makes? I mean, what's the best way to manage that?
Great question. I would, if you're worried about that, I would copy everything into a new sheet, and then I would ask Copilot to make the changes in that new spare sheet or the copy, and
Hmm.
then ask it to merge the changes that you actually want to keep into the previous sheet. Would be the workflow that I would use for that. I suppose the other thing you could do is you could fork the version by saving as, and then having a separate whole workbook, but sounds a bit like it could get quite messy quite quickly.
Hmm.
Which models do you have available for picking when you use that?
I don't know. That's a new one on me. I'll have to go back into my Excel and see if I can actually select a model. I've not noticed that before.
Yeah, so there are some Copilot settings that your administrator will have to turn on in the tenant to ensure that you can use the Anthropic models. You also have
Hmm.
to agree to their data processing agreement in the Microsoft 365 tenant, essentially basically signing your life away, saying, yes, I understand my data will be processed in the USA and I'm okay with that. And then you will get the use of the Anthropic models, which in my experience are just they're what I use for any what we call agentic editing, which is where Copilot goes and takes the action for you, just because Anthropic are absolute kings of that at the moment.
Okay, I apologize. I've taken over a lot of question time, but I did have one final question,
Sure.
which is, can you create an agent using the standard 365 chat, or you
Yes,
have to have a license?
you can create personal agents, or the last time I checked, you certainly could create personal agents, but you can't create Copilot Studio agents. That would be a
Yeah,
separate paid license or consumption model, depending on where you sit with that.
perfect. Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you. It's been
Oh,
really, really interesting.
oh, good. I'm glad you found value. Thank you, Mira.
Yeah.
Andrea, I'm going to put you on the spot. Hopefully, Ashley's going to unmute you shortly. If you would like to ask your question, I can read it out. If not,
No, I think I'm here. Can you hear me?
we can.
Yes, Andrea. Hello.
Perfect. Very interesting talk, Matt. Thank you very much. It's just highlighted actually how little I know about, the AI platforms. I subscribe to Claude. So I haven't been using Copilot. So if I'm subscribed to Claude, is there a necessity to use the Copilot, or is just using Claude alone sufficient?
Great question. So you can use plugins in Copilot. Sorry, you can use plugins in Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, and Word with Claude. Claude has a little plugin that sits in line with those tools now, so you can do pretty much everything I just did, but with Claude. So no, you don't have to have a Copilot license, and of course you can connect Anthropic's tenant to, if you've got Team Edition, to your Microsoft 365 as well. So people can search your company knowledge. So no, you don't have to do what we just showed you in Copilot. You can do that in Claude as well.
Great. That leads to my second question, which I put down as number one in the Q&A box, is how confidential is the data that it's processing? So if it has access to all your history, if say you're writing legal documents, how safe is that information? Can anybody then do a search in Claude, and Claude will then actually look into the advice it's given you and pull that up?
Are you on a personal plan or a team/business plan?
Personal.
Okay, so in theory, I would say that is not entirely safe. You do not have what is called a DPA, a data processing agreement, on personal plans between you and Anthropic. The difference between the business models and the personal models is that there is a DPA in place between you, the business, and Anthropic, and that means that they cannot consume your data for model training effectively, and they have to do certain things and hit certain standards and requirements with it, which they don't have to do for personal plans. However, if you go into your Claude settings, go to, I think it's security and privacy, and then click the tab that says improve the model for everyone and turn that off, then you're going a bit of a fair way to making sure that your data isn't used for model training, at least.
Okay.
But my advice would be to move to a business plan. You have to purchase a minimum of 5 seats, though. That's just a limitation that Anthropic have.
Okay, great. Okay, I think my first question has answered the second question in my Q&A box. So thank you very much, Matt.
No worries. Just to also say, with Copilot, obviously everything is in your Microsoft 365 tenant. It's all in the Graph API, and it is all protected by Microsoft's data protection agreements and arrangements that it has in place with their customers. So that is one of the reasons why Copilot has an advantage over businesses that already have Microsoft 365 licensing. Hope that helps.
Oh, so sorry, just on that point. So if I cancel my Claude subscription and start using Copilot, then that addresses the DPA issue.
Yes, it does, because you're then relying on Microsoft's DPA that you've got, and you can turn on the Anthropic models in the Microsoft 365 tenancy anyway.
Ah, got it. Okay, got it.
For what it's worth, we use both. We use Anthropic, and we also use Microsoft 365 Copilot. They have slightly different use cases, and Claude has a few features that for us are still super, super valuable and justify the cost. But we realize that, we're an AI consultancy. We should be using the best tool for the best job whenever possible and financially sensible. So not every business is going to be in that position.
Brilliant. Understood. Thank you very much indeed, Matt.
You're welcome. No problem.
just to add to that, Andrea, we can obviously help with the tenant settings and all of that background and back end infrastructure configuration and environment to make sure that it's all compliant. So yeah, but we can pick that up separately. But
Perfect.
that's applicable to everybody on the call.
Perfect. Thank you, Keith.
No problem. I've got a question, Matt. If we've got a few minutes, and this is for the benefit of hopefully everyone on the call. I don't know whether everybody understands the different models that are available and the reasoning and impact you would use different models. Is there a way you can just very high level, just give a little bit of a overview as to even maybe the difference between Claude and Copilot, but then the models within inside of the different LLMs?
Oh, you've decided to make my brain really work for the last 9 minutes, Keith. I appreciate that. So there's a few things to pick apart here, and I'll try and break it down as simply as possible. When we build AI models, and when I say we, the frontier businesses, OpenAI, Anthropic, et al., go and build an AI model, they ingest data from different places to train those models. They then have teams of humans called data scientists that go and work on that data, work on the model, and then train it into providing high quality answers. That is a human-led process. Human-created data, humans doing the reinforcement. We do have AI now also creating data for AI to go and consume, but that's a whole other topic. The point is, different companies, different models, different teams, different outputs and different feels. So if I put the same prompt into ChatGPT as I did into Claude, I would get similar but different responses, and that is just a result of all of that human interaction that's gone on with the model, setting it up over time. Copilot gives you access to the best of both worlds, because you can now access Anthropic's Claude models in M365, and you can access OpenAI's ChatGPT models. You can actually switch between the two, which is kind of powerful, really, because if you think when we go back to that output feeling a bit generic and stale, sometimes a lever that you can pull to change it is just to go, oh, hang on a minute, if I just change from the OpenAI model to Claude Sonnet, oh, that sounds much better. Great, thanks. And it's a really easy fix. So it just gives you a bit more optionality on tweaking and fine-tuning your output. And you'll get into a bit of a rhythm with what works for you, what output you prefer, which model to use. There's one more thing that you touched on there, Keith, was that there are instant models or instant replies and then thinking replies. And the easiest way to sort of describe that is that if you were to say, hey, Claude, look at my calendar and try and find a period of 30 minutes that I've got available, if you just turned on instant, it would very quickly skim it and then have a guess and say, oh, I think you've got 2 o'clock available. But it might have just gone, oh, I know Matt was available at 2 o'clock yesterday, so I'm going to guess that today because he wants a quick answer. It's not actually reasoned or thought through the problem. Thinking models will go and look at the calendar and go, okay, I see Matt's got a meeting at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock he doesn't have anything, and 5 p.m. he has something. Oh, Matt, the only gap you've got today is 4 o'clock. I'm sorry. So there are lots of different levers that you can pull to achieve lots of different things. Remember when going back earlier in the demo, I had to switch to that instant response to actually get the questions to generate quickly? Similar kind of thing. The output quality will have dropped because it hasn't thought through what the questions might need to be. However, it did give me a response straight away. And it's just, again, about fiddling with the settings, fiddling with the models and learning. We try to help fast track people on that process when we take them through our training and show you what different responses look like from different models and different settings to, as I said, give you that fast track and that insider knowledge. Does that answer the question, Keith?
Yes, that's great. Thank you. I don't think we've got any more questions, unless anybody's got any last minute questions, pop them into the box. I will just start summarising. Thank you, everyone. Really appreciate you giving up your time. We can help in many different ways. Please reach out to your account manager or myself, or respond to the email that comes out with the follow-up information. We'd be delighted to have a conversation with you, and no question is a silly question. I think we're going to wrap there because there are no other questions. So yeah, please reach out if we can help, and your account manager will be ready to answer any questions. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.
Amazing. Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Keith. See you all later. Thanks, Ashley, in the background.
Thanks all.